Now, waiting in the wings, that's quite an apt idiom saying, because I'm joined by an artist called Bird, who I've had previously on the show, if you do remember. If you haven't heard of Bird, you can check my previous interview with her on the channel. Acoustic instrumentalist, singer-songwriter in her own right. Lovely to have you back on a radio show and programs.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Yeah, so first up, I need to ask, how are you doing today?
Sure, I'm doing pretty good actually. It is where I am, a little rainy, I'm not gonna lie, but yeah, I'm good. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. Weather's sending mixed signals to us at the moment, but great British weather for you.
Mm.
Weather aside, we're here to talk about the music because one of the reasons I invited you on my show was to talk about your new cover single you're promoting, which is, in my opinion, your interpretation of a song by the Smiths called How Soon Is Now. So, can you just tell me just how this all come about? Putting the song together, what inspired you to record this version, and how has it been, to be received from Smiths fans alike from all over?
Yeah. So I'm a Smiths fan, obviously. In fact, it's not the first time I cover a Smiths song. I made an album using only cello and voice many years ago called A Girl on Cello. And on that I did a cover of Some Girls, but I called it Some Boys. I actually had to get permission from Morrissey to change the lyrics, which I got, which was astounding. So and that did pretty well back then. And so I've and How Soon of Now is just a favorite song of mine, and I've been playing it live for years. Like I started covering it like maybe a decade ago, and I don't know why it never occurred to me before to actually record it. But I was trying to think of a cover to put on my latest EP, Heads or Tails, which comes out next month, and it just came to me. I was like, well, why don't I just do an acoustic version of How Soon Is Now as I kind of play it live. And it's been really well received, actually. I mean, there's always the odd person who writes something really scathing. But interestingly, the one person who did, it doesn't seem that they're a Smiths fan at all. So I just wanted to write something scathing. But in general, most Smiths fans, I think they like the fact that I've sort of just made it my own version. There's nothing worse, is there, than hearing someone cover a song and it's like almost identical to the original, but also just not. And actually, well, I managed to get it to Johnny Marr, and he also said that he really liked it. So that was quite an emotional moment for me, actually, having Johnny's
That's
thumbs
quite
up.
that's quite impressive then. And they do say to make a cover song your own, put your own stamp on it.
Yeah, I think I have a couple of rules with cover songs, and they really sort of go along the lines of just make sure that you're really doing something that adds value, that's
Mm.
different, and I think that picking a song that would normally be sung by a male, obviously I'm already kind of changing the gender and also almost the meaning of it depending on what the lyric is and the fact that I'm singing it from a
Mm.
different point of view. And I think just musically as well, it's about hearing something different in what someone's already composed and giving people the opportunity to hear something in a different way to how they
Mm.
would normally hear it. And I think a good cover serves the purpose of you loving the original more.
Mm.
Whenever I've heard a really brilliant cover, it just makes me want to go back and listen to the original, and then I can just enjoy it for all sorts of new reasons because it's opened up new possibilities in a song. So I try and do that when I work with a cover. I'm really sort of aiming with all the best intentions to honor the original song,
Yeah.
not to just, make something for me.
That's what I like about today's music, really, because there's no right or wrong answer. The sky's the limit. So I know it's a man singing, the song originally Morrissey, and of course, like you've got female vocals on it, but that does not matter these days.
No, it should never matter, because
No.
at the end of the day, it's just different interpretations. And I've just finished recording, and I'll be releasing it probably later this year. I just finished recording a version of "Lay Lady Lay," a Bob Dylan song, and that's like totally twists the song when you put that in a female perspective. I always found it a little bit creepy when he sang it, like that whole, like "Lay on my big brass bed" thing. And I don't know, but when I sang it, I felt kind of very empowered, and it's like, well, who is she talking to? Is she talking to his girlfriend, or is she talking to, there's like or her own girlfriend? There's all sorts of lovely ways that you can interpret and listen to that. And I think that sort of messing with that sort of more conventional kind of gender, the way that the kind of female and male roles in songs. I think it's fun to mess with that, especially now when we're talking more in general,
Yeah.
when we're having more open conversations about things like
Of
that.
course. Yeah, I had listened to your version of How Soon Is Now. And when you listen to a song first time, it can take a while just to listen to a song over and over and again, just to kind of, grow on you. But first time, it did warm to me. And not many cover songs can capture that first time experience.
Oh, that's thank you. That's a real compliment. I think that's a lot down to the people that played on the track too, because I purposely used musicians from as far away from kind of the sort of British sound as possible. So I went to the States and worked with some old friends of mine there who were kind of old school Americana kind of folk artists because I really wanted the song to have a really new flavor to it, and hope that in doing that it kind of draws you in a bit because you're just not musically expecting what comes up. It sort of makes you want to keep listening because you're like, what, why is there that on there?
And one of my questions was because this version's been championed by Johnny Marr, who was a band member of the Smiths himself, and you did mention just that it was quite an overwhelming experience for you.
Yeah, it's just, it's always nice when your heroes like something that you've done, isn't it? I've actually met Johnny once a while ago. We were in the same recording studio. I was recording in the room next to him. He was actually playing the guitar on the James Bond theme. He was doing the ding 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 ding. He was in the room next door, and he came in because he was a big fan of the producer that I was working with. He doesn't know who I am.
Mm.
And he came in and he was like, "Oh, would you mind?" Came in, "I'd like to chat with your producer for a few minutes." It's very polite, and I tried to play it very cool and pretended that I didn't care at all that Johnny Marr was in my recording studio. And yeah, he had a chat with the producer, and then I asked him what it was like to play the James Bond theme, and he said that he was very nervous. So there you go. We're all human, just
Yeah.
doing our thing.
Oh, great. Because he was in a band called Electronic as well. Is that right? In the
Yeah,
80s.
he was. Yeah, it was like that's like a super group, isn't it? With also, oh God, what's that great song? Oh, I can't remember that. Anyway, I love them. And he also did, is it Mighty Mouse, the
Yeah, he was
American band?
on a
Well,
few bands. Yeah.
he played guitar for them in the States and toured with them. He's just a great
Uh,
musician,
yeah, yeah. And
Yes.
because Morrissey as well, he was quite witty with his words. Would you say you're quite an avid fan of like literary works and poetry as
I
well?
am, yeah, very much so. In fact, that's one of the reasons why I am such a big Smiths fan. I think it's that combination of Johnny Marr's kind of amazing kind of pop sensibility and guitar playing. He just writes these little hooks every time he's playing, and then you've got Morrissey with his kind of cutting, almost cruel lyrics. You're
Mm,
right. I really like Kay Tempest as well. I'm a big fan of their work. I just think they're astonishingly talented.
mm.
So, maybe I'm less musically excited sometimes, but I'm overexcited by how they're able to kind of manipulate and use the word. It's just
Yeah.
incredible. So yeah, I am a big fan of written work and poetry
Mm.
and just well considered lyricism. Yeah, I'm always, if I hear a song or read a poem, and it makes me kind of think, God, I wish I'd written that, and I'm inspired by it. Then it's a beautiful thing, isn't it?
Yeah. Not to see all the books on the back there.
Yes, don't analyze those though, because there's many there that aren't mine.
Oh, no worries.
The
I
bottom
think
row there, that's mine, but the others, for those listening, for those not watching, it starts off quite cerebral. There's a bit of War and Peace on the bottom row, but then as you go up, it goes into sort of like Stephen King territory. So
right, right then. Back to your single now. So with How Soon Is Now, you mentioned some of the people you worked with on the track. Did you record this in the States at all, or partially?
partially, yeah, I did. Yes, I went to Nashville, where a very good friend of mine, he's an amazing session guitarist, a guy called Ilya Toshinsky, and we worked together quite a lot. And I asked him to put together a band for me, to record a whole bunch of new songs actually, and for this EP and for the next EP I'll be releasing afterwards. And so yeah, this song was one of those tracks, and I was very lucky because Ilya has a lot of very talented friends. And we also have Jay DeMarcus from the Rascal Flats playing on it. So for any of your listeners who are kind of folk Americana fans and like that stuff from the States, and he's on there. Just talented guys,
Yeah.
yeah.
Because I always thought with How Soon Is Now, the guitar riff, I thought that's always been destined to be made like in a country sound. And you do
That's what
have,
I thought.
yeah,
That's
you
what
do have
I
that
thought.
little bit of ingredients in your version as well.
Yeah, yeah. I think that I always heard it when I used to cover it. Well, obviously I didn't sort of play it in a country way, but I always heard the potential for that to be in there, and I just thought it'd be really nice to put that kind of slight Americana
Hmm.
twist on it.
And
Especially bearing in mind that Mr. Marr also likes to work with American bands, and I thought that'd be kind of a fun thing to do.
and how was the experience of Nashville as well? Was that a good experience, to visit that city?
I love Nashville. Yeah, it's not my first time. I've worked out there a few times now. Sometimes I get asked to go and co-write because I write for other artists as well as
Mm.
doing my own projects. And I just really enjoy being in an atmosphere that's so music centric. It's like Nashville is to music what LA is to actors.
Mm.
So you're just sort of surrounded by it everywhere you go, every bar, every restaurant you walk into. All of the waitresses and waiters are all aspiring musicians, and it's really sweet because you can have some great conversations and meet great people, and there's just live music everywhere. So yeah, I mean, if you're like a musician like me, then it's a fun place to go and
Mm.
hang. Yeah.
Would you say it's one of your personal favorites to visit in the States?
Yeah, I think it is. Yeah, I think Nashville and Austin for me are probably the two places that I like being in best because they satisfy both my need for American fast food and my need to be around music 24/7. So
One thing about fast food American, I do like an odd milkshake here and there.
yeah, they do a good bit. And also, if you go to either Tennessee or Texas, they also do amazing barbecue. So it's like, yeah. And if you don't eat meat, then they also do great thing called a banana pudding, which is a bit like an incredible milkshake, but in a pudding form. So, there's that. Yeah, it's pretty cool. Yeah.
Happy days. Also, have you done like any recording for like advertisements? The reason why I ask is because a well-known department store used a Smith song a few years back by a group called Slow Moving Millie, and they did "Please, Please Let Me Get What I Want" on one of their adverts. Was
They
that one
did.
avenue that you'd like to look at doing?
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I hadn't even thought about it. I mean, with the Bob Dylan cover, maybe I could get one of those like bed advert, like DFS sofa kind of
Yeah.
like lady like. Honest truth, I have not really considered it. I think that sync works, so getting your music placed in adverts or films or TV shows, it's becoming one of the main focuses for musicians just because it's one of the only ways that we can still make money is the honest truth because
Mm,
obviously streaming means that our revenues as writers is much lower than it used to be, which most people I think don't even realize is happening, unfortunately.
mm,
So things like getting your music in adverts is really a sort of way to survive now. And the problem is, of course, that every musician is trying to survive. So the competition to try and get your music in
yeah.
adverts and TV shows and media is a lot higher. And honestly, I think if I started making music or doing covers with one eye on trying to get it in something, I think I'd stop doing a good job. Because you know how when you sort of like start to do that, I don't know. So it's like writing music specifically for things. It's like sometimes it can take the bit of the soul out of it. So
Mm,
I try to just do stuff that I really, really love or I'm really, really inspired by. And then if it has a knock-on effect that, it gets into something, then that'd be just great because it means
yeah.
I can keep making music. So if
Yeah,
anyone out
just
there wants to put my music in an advert, then yeah, they can do that.
perfect time now because it's May to June. They start thinking about things like that. So yeah, you never know, do
Yeah.
you? You
Yeah,
never
I
know.
think you need to pick a song. Like that was a clever one because please, please, boy, that's a good like Christmas present song, isn't
Mm,
it? Something with the
mm.
word wrapping paper or present or
Yeah, it's got that kind of
tree.
nostalgic, heartwarming feel to it. Yeah,
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 that was a clever version
yeah.
actually. So yeah.
And I wanted to just ask because you touched on the climate of the music industry at the moment. It is really tough for everyone, isn't it, in any arts or industry, And do you find how musicians make an income now is not generally through music sales, it's more through touring and merchandise and other avenues as well?
Yeah, I mean, it is. It's more difficult for many, many reasons. I think one of the things that's hard is that musicians are expected to be not just musicians; they're expected to be PR gurus. They're expected to be marketing geniuses, And as we all know, people who work in the arts are often quite sensitive people whose skill set is not that of those other jobs. That's exactly why they're a musician. And I think what's happening is that it's having quite a negative impact on people's mental health when they're
Hmm.
not able to succeed at all those things. And I think that's sad because a lot of talent is just not able to kind of break through because of that. On the flip side of that, because you can put your music out now and it's much easier to do that. You're not at the mercy of having to have a record deal or a publishing deal now. And that does mean that you can put out a song. You can go through DistroKid or something, and for almost no money, you can release a song. So there are kind of pros and cons to it. I think it would be great, without getting too political about it all, if there could just be a slightly fairer system for how musicians are
Mm.
paid. That people are actually still getting a decent wage for writing a song. That there should be slightly better protection for writers when it comes to issues like AI, which is quite
Mm.
concerning now. So there are a few things that need to be dealt with,
Mm.
but like any industry, it has its kind of ups
Yeah.
and downs. We have to look after each other.
Just briefly touching, because I know Elton John made a point about the AI situation at the moment in the news the other day.
Yeah, it's again. I always sort of feel like you're only as good as your last song. You just have to keep writing better stuff. And I don't really think that AI can replace humans, because
No.
there's just something so beautiful about the human spirit and the way that we empathize and
Yeah.
communicate. And I'm not sure that AI is quite there. It certainly won't be able to play a live show.
Mm.
So I think there is a place for us, and maybe the better that AI gets, the more that it's exposed, the more that we are able to counterbalance that with great live
Mm.
work. So I'm not sure that it's all bad,
Yeah.
but it's concerning that there aren't better controls over how AI is allowed to
Mm.
learn from music. I think that's the thing people are a bit
Yeah.
worried about.
One thing I've learned from modern technology, it's not infallible. Something always goes wrong one
Oh
way or the
yeah.
other.
It does. Actually, I try to use it as little as possible, I have to say. I mean, I'm one of those few artists that won't auto tune a vocal, for example, because I feel like,
Mm.
either sing it or don't sing it,
Yeah.
And it's interesting though that people now, even when they review you, they just assume that you've used technologies. They just assume that your music's auto tuned. I had some reviews for How Soon Is Now where people were criticizing um the programmed strings on the track, and they're all real. Like, it's me
Mm.
playing cello, and it's a wonderful friend of mine, Sally Herbert, playing violin and viola. So that kind of stuff's a bit upsetting, because you're like, no, dude, that's real. Like, so interesting that people can't tell the difference. They're like, oh, right, that's a bit
Mm.
depressing. But
I'm slightly biased because the synthesizer is perhaps one of my favorite instruments ever. I just
me
love the
too.
electronic sound. It's
Me
really
too. I
popular as
love
well.
it.
Yeah, the young
Yeah, I'm
people
all
love it.
over the synthesizer. I've got an OB8 in the studio. I've got an old Moog. Like, yeah, I'm well into my Juno. Love my Junos. Yeah, I love synths. But I think the idea that my like real strings could be confused with ones from a computer are a little bit like,
Sure. Now back
nah.
to How Soon Is Now. You got the acoustic version that's out now.
Yes.
And would you say that this is the introductory number for your upcoming EP, Heads or Tails?
Well, I mean, it's a funny thing now, isn't it? Because back in the day, we used to release a body of work and then the singles, but now it works the other way around. So now you release the singles first and then you release the EP at the end. So this is the third track on the EP, and then the last track will be released with the EP next month, and that'll
Hmm.
be a song that I co-wrote with Andy Dunlop from Travis, and that's called
Nice.
Sunny Days, and that'll be out at the end of June with the
Sure.
EP.
Well, watch out for that. And just one question for this, Heads or Tails. Would you say this EP could be about making decisions, like 50-50?
I see why you said that, because yeah, heads or tails. Honest truth, no, it's not about that. I just really liked the play on words of it being tales as in stories,
Hmm.
not tales as in tales of animals. And in fact, the next EP is going to have a play on words title too, because these EPs concentrate on stories or different versions of events, and so I wanted to sort of play with perception. It's about, yeah, different perceptions of situations. And so I thought it'd be fun to play with that in title two, but it's not specifically about decisions.
And one thing I like about doing interviews is I love promoting new music as well, but I also like given the opportunity to listener to kind of just reflect on some of the artist's back catalogue as well. So just wanted to talk about some of your other material you've released. One record called Daddy, that was actually released this year. Have to ask
Yeah.
that because it's an intriguing song title. What's the story behind Daddy on this one?
Yeah, so Daddy's really about I wanted to write a love song, but I wanted it to be about a lack of love rather than an abundance of love. You know, we often write about lost love, but still because of great amounts of love, don't we, when we write love songs? And I just thought, wouldn't it be interesting to write a song where we really talk about the void that's left by not having enough love in someone's life? And it's something that we've all seen, if not experienced, you know, this kind of sense of someone that you know, or you know, maybe personally you've had the experience where, you know, a parent or someone very close to you just isn't able to give that love that they see other people's parents or people around them giving their children. And it has this sort of terrible kind of cyclical effect where, you know, the person is not able to love as much as they should. And so then that person also cannot love, and so it keeps this kind of terrible spiral kind of happens, and someone quite close to me kind of suffers from that, you know, just didn't really get the hugs and the love that they should have got, and you know, it's so desperately sad, and so I wanted to write a song about that.
Hmm. And another song you also released as well called
Mm.
Roy as well. That's a beautiful song. Do you still get like a thrill from performing that live as well when you do get a chance to be on
Yeah, so
stage?
Roy's the first track on the EP, and Roy's quite an interesting song because it's written about Roy Orbison, so the famous Pretty Woman singer, for those of you that might not know who he is. And I wrote that song because I was inspired by a documentary that I watched in which his son, Roy Orbison Jr., told an extraordinary story about how his dad went to save Elvis Presley's dead body from being stolen by thieves. Just
Wow.
like literally the most extraordinary story I ever heard. And I kind of watched a documentary, which is beautiful. It's called Love Hurts. It's made by Nigel Cole. And I was like, oh my God, that's insane. I want to write a song about that. So I wrote the song. And then actually, I found out a little bit more about the story. I decided to make a short documentary, which I've just finished. So I've literally just finished a documentary about it. And I had to get the Orbison family's permission to make the documentary and play them the song. And Roy Orbison Jr. actually wrote to me saying how much he liked the song about his dad, which was pretty cool. Yeah.
Great, great artist, isn't he? Somewhat I can say slightly underrated as well.
Roy Orbison. I mean,
Yeah,
he was like a giant. Like it
yeah.
really. That's why I wanted to make the documentary because it was really important for me to kind of, I don't know, just kind of help keep that legacy alive because
Mm,
he's really astonishing. Like it's a voice that's really so unique. Elvis Presley said he had the greatest voice ever heard. You know, I mean, and that was from Elvis Presley. I mean, he was
yeah.
like a proper superstar, and maybe for our generations now, you know, that legacy kind of, you know, it doesn't burn quite as brightly because you know he's been dead quite a while now,
Mm,
but
mm,
the truth is the songs that he wrote and that he sang are very much still part of popular culture. You know, he's
mm,
still kind of quite relevant in a lot of
yeah.
ways.
I know we talked about adverts. I know in Dreams as well. That was used for like a furniture advert as well. And on that song, his voice vocals are unmatchable.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, pretty much in every song he ever
Yeah.
sang, you're unmatchable. It's like it's really hard to do a cover of a Roy Orbison song. Bob Dylan's easy because he's yeah, something like that anyway. But Roy Orbison's like, oh, how do you follow that? You know, it's a brave person who does a Roy Orbison cover,
Mm.
I think.
And you released a single as well called The Tides as well. That has kind of like a seaside kind of feel to it. Still doing well for itself as well. It's broke the 100,000 hits barrier. When was that
Yeah.
released and recorded? That
Yeah,
one.
so that was out the year before, and that was also tied to a short film that I made, actually. It was my first short film, it did pretty well. We won a bunch of awards and got in a lot of film festivals. And I wrote that song with an amazing guy called John Paul White. And if any of your listeners are fans of Americana, they'll probably know him because he was in a band called the Civil Wars, who won a bunch of Grammys a few years back. So John Paul and I have known each other a long time. So we wrote The Tides together. Yeah. And I was actually trapped in the bottom of a boat in a storm that I didn't want to be on in Greece on holiday one summer. And I was so mad that I wrote the lyric for that song. And then I was in America with John Paul and he started playing the guitar and I was like, the right part for that song. And it was used in the first short film that I made. It was kind of the theme that went through the whole film. And so it got released as part of the soundtrack for the
Yeah.
film.
Brilliant. Well, one final question, because there was so much I wanted to ask you today, but we can only fit so much in. But one final question I wanted to ask, where's best for people to like follow you on social media links, just to see, when your new music's released and any gigs coming up as well.
Yeah, sure. So, Bird Official. If you put in Bird, you'll never find me. So, Bird Official, and the website is birdofficial.com. Or you can go to my Instagram, which is at Bird Official. You can also Google my real name. If you put in Janie Price and Bird, then you can also pretty much find anything you want to find on me.
Sure.
But the website and the Instagram are the best places.
Yep. And is it okay to play your new single now on my radio shows?
Absolutely. I'd
Right.
love it if you did. I'd be
And
honored.
also, if you're watching my YouTube channel, we'll put the links down below there with your website as well, so people can find out more about you and just click on the links, to find out about more information about your new single, which is out now. Thanks for joining me, Bird, re-interview. Great to catch up with you after all this time on my show.
Yeah, great to see you again. Thanks very much.
Yeah, nice one, and have a great rest of your day. Okay,
Thank you.
no problem.